As a business owner, the one thing that we can all relate to is building the business. We put so much time and energy into growing the business that when it comes time to start planning for what's next, we put it off. With all the decisions, the responsibilities, and demands that we face every day, nobody really has time to think about succession, and it's so far away that you don't really plan for it. Or we think we have a plan, but then things happen.
Rebel Heart Water Hauling has been a family-run business since 1994. What started out with a single bay maintenance facility in Edmonton has grown into a company with over 45 trucks and support units that serves Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan. Norm has done an incredible job in not only expanding the business, taking advantage of opportunities, but sustaining it as well through every challenge you can imagine.
The little company with a big heart. That's always been our central belief, and Rebel Heart Trucking continues to incorporate safety, service, and integrity within all of our operating principles. I think that's what's at the core of being a family-run business. It's your name, your reputation, and you never forget that.
Family-owned businesses are always interesting. They're very personal, and it's understandable why. The business is your baby. You've invested so much time and resources into the company that when it comes time to consider succession, you feel like you're giving away part of who you are. It's scary.
For me, the initial goal was to transition the business within my family and long-term employees. I'd gone through the process on my own, and eventually the transitions didn't work out. Once this was no longer a reality, it was time to look broader for the succession of my business.
This is where I come in. While completing a program at NAIT, I started working part-time with Rebel Heart. From the beginning, Norm and I clicked. We formed a very strong relationship right at the beginning. We then began to discuss the opportunity of me taking over the business. I didn't think this could be possible, or at least I didn't at the beginning of the process, because I had only been there for 2 years and I was still a part-time student at NAIT.
You never know where opportunity will come from, and with Josh, I could see the future. Josh understood what Rebel Heart was all about. It was more than a business to me, and even though he wasn't directly related, he was fast becoming a part of the Rebel Heart family. This was important to me because everything we had built over the years, what we stood for, would still continue on.
So the process began. It was just the two of us. Even though Norm felt comfortable with handling the transaction ourselves, I felt a bit uneasy. What you need to understand is that this was the biggest transaction of my life. It was overwhelming, and I wanted to ensure we got it right. And not just for me, but for Norm as well. I wanted to make sure that it was beneficial for both of us and that we were both protected. And so I looked for outside help. People that were experienced in the succession process. That's when I went to M&P.
Succession takes on many different forms, whether it's transitioning the business to a family member or selling the company to a different party. Some owners want a phased buyout, where others want the company transitioned completely. Every situation is unique, and every transition needs to consider the timing and the financial needs of the owner. At the same time, all options need to be considered. It's extremely rare that the owner's first choice for succession is the one that emerges as the right one in the end. Because of this, you need a customized plan that works for everyone involved. A plan that accounts for every scenario and best prepares you and your business for succession.
When we met with Lynne, she talked us through the entire transition. There were a lot of components that Norm and I hadn't even considered.
And that's what we find most common with succession planning. Business owners don't account for everything. If you think about it, for most business owners, this is going to be the most important financial transaction of their lives. And it'll also be the first time that they ever do this. There are many things to take into consideration. Will you have enough to retire with? Or will you have to grow the value of the business first? How can that happen? When will you no longer want to be involved with the business? Will you slow down your involvement, or will you leave on a day? What about tax? And if you're transitioning to family, how will you make it fair to all? And how will you know who should be eligible to be in the business? All of these things can affect your business and the final transaction. Everything you've worked so hard for.
What I found most impressive was that M&P didn't just set up the framework for the initial transaction, they set it up for long-term success. It wasn't just about today. Our plan accounted for tomorrow as well, and this really paid off for us. When we first approached the banks for help in financing on our own, we were not very well received. With M&P involved, they were able to structure the deal in such a way that positioned me as a viable candidate, and Rebel Heart is a viable company and great opportunity to invest in. I know without M&P involved, we would have never been able to secure financing.
The final proposal that was agreed to was a phased buyout. Josh would purchase 70% of Rebel Heart shares, leaving Norm with 30% equity. This agreement worked for both parties, in that Norm still retained equity in the company, and retaining him and his experience would help Josh run the company, build his confidence, so that he could grow and evolve the company to be as successful as what Norm had built.
Going through the process at the beginning, I remember writing on the sidebar of the initial engagement agreement that a development of a business plan and other items were unnecessary. I thought it was too much, but I have to confess at the end of the transition, I thanked Lynne. Every detail was accounted for, and throughout everything, we had a plan in place that we constantly looked upon to help with the final decisions. This plan ensured that Josh and I were on the same page throughout every step.
The one thing that I've learned throughout this process is that it's never too early to start planning for succession. My goal is to build this company up, increase the overall value, so that eventually I will be able to sell or transition the business like Norm has. I don't know when that day will be, but I know with the right strategies in place and an effective plan, I will start today building further value in the business, leaving nothing to chance.